Playing Fields by M.R. James. The hour was late and the night was fair. I had halted not far from the sheep's bridge and was thinking about the stillness, only broken by the sound of the weir, when a loud, tremulous hoot just above me made me jump. It is always annoying to be startled, but I have a kindness for owls. This one was evidently very near. I looked about for it. There it was, sitting plumply on a branch about 12 feet up. I pointed my stick at it and said, "Was that you?" "Drop it," said the owl. "I know it ain't only a stick, but I don't like it." "Yes, of course that's with me. Do you suppose it would be if I weren't?" "We will take the read of sentences about by surprise." I lowered my stick. "Well," said the owl, "what about it? If you will come out here in midsummer evening, like what it is, what did you expect?" "I beg your pardon," I said. "I should have remembered. May I say that I think myself very lucky to have met you tonight. I hope you have time for a little talk." "Well," said the owl ungraciously, "I don't know if it matters so particularly tonight. I've had my supper when it happens, and if you ain't too big long over it, Suddenly it broke into a loud scream, flapping its wings furiously, it bent towards and clutched its perch tightly, continuing to scream. Plainly, something was pulling hard on it from behind. The strain relaxed abruptly, and the owl nearly fell over, and then whipped around, roughing up all over, and made a vicious dab at something unseen to me. "Oh, I'm sorry," said a small, clear voice in a solicitous tone. "I made sure it was loose. I hope it didn't hurt you." "Didn't hurt me," said the owl bitterly. "Of course it hurt me. Well, you know it, you young infidel. The feather was no more loose than... Oh, if I could get at you. Now I shouldn't wonder if you've been thrown about all balance. Why can't you let a person sit quiet for 2 minutes or at a time without you coming up and creeping up and... Well, you've done it this time. Anyway, I shall straight to the headquarters and..." Funny was now addressing an empty air. "What have you got to now? Oh, it is too bad, that is." "Dear me," I said. "I'm afraid this isn't the first time you've been annoyed in this way. May I ask exactly what happened?" "You may ask," said the owl, looking narrowly about as it spoke. "But it'd take me till the later end of next week to tell you. Fancy coming and pulling out someone's tail feather. It hurt me something cruel, it did. And for what? I should like to know. Answer me that. What's the reason for it?" All that occurred to me that was to murmur. The clamorous owl that nightly hoots and wonders at our quaint spirits. I hardly thought the point would be taken, but the owl said sharply, "What's that? Yes, you needn't repeat it. I heard. And I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it, and you mark my words." It bent towards me and whispered, with many nods of its round head. "Pride. Standoffishness. That's what it is. Come not near me, fairy queen." This he said in a bitter tone of contempt. "Oh dear no, we ain't good for the likes of them. Another noted time out of mind of the best singers in the fields, ain't it so?" "Well," I said doubtfully enough, "I'd like to hear you very much, but, some people think a lot of thrushes and nightingales and so on. You must have heard of that, haven't you? And then perhaps, of course, I don't know, perhaps your style of singing isn't exactly what they think suitable to accompany their dancing, huh?" "I should kindly hope not," said the owl, drawing itself up. "Our family's never give in to dancing, and never won't neither. Why, whatever you are thinking of," it went off in a rising temper, "a pretty thing it would be for me to be set there hiccuping at them." It stopped and looked harshly all around, its up and down, and then continued in a louder voice. "Them little ladies and gentlemen, if it ain't suitable for them, it sure ain't suitable for me, and..." Again the temper rose. "If they expect me to ever say a word because they're dancing and carrying on with their foolishness, they're very much mistook, and so I tell 'em." From what had passed before, I was afraid this was an impudent line to take, and I was right. Hardly had the owl given its last emphatic nod when 4 small, slim forms dropped from a bough above, and in a twinkling some sort of grass rope was thrown on the body of the unhappy bird, and it was borne off through the air, loudly protesting in the direction of the fellow's pond. Splashes and gurgles and shrieks of unfeeling laughter were heard as I hurried up. Something darted away over my head, and as I stood peering over the bank of the pond, which was all in the commotion, a very angry and disheveled owl scrambled heavily up on the bank, and stopping near my feet and shook itself and flapped and hissed for several minutes without saying anything I should care to appear. Glaring at me, it said eventually, with a grim presage of rage in its voice that I had such hastily drew back a step or two.
That said they is very sorry, and they mistook me for a duck. If all ain't sorry enough to make anyone to go regular district from their mind and tear everything to flinders for miles around.
So carried away was its passion, it began to process at once by rooting up a large beakful of grass, which, alas, got into its throat, and the choking was resulted made me feeling afraid that it would break a vessel. But paroxysm was mastered, and the owl sat up, winking and breathless, but intact. Some expression of sympathy seemed to be required, yet as I chary of offering it, for its present state of mind I felt the bird might interpret the best meant phrase for a fresh insult. So we stood looking at each other without speech for a very awkward minute. And then came to a diversion. First the thin voice of the pavilion clock, then the deeper sound from the castle quadrangle, then Lupton's tower drowning the curfew tower by its nearness.
What's that?
Said the owl, suddenly and hoarsely.
Midnight, I should think,
said I, with a recourse to my match.
Midnight?
Cried the owl, evidently much startled.
And me too wet to fly a yard. Here, pick me up and put me in the tree. Don't. I climb on your leg, and don't you ask me to be that twice. Quick now.
I obeyed. Which tree do you want?
Why, my tree to be sure, over there.
It nodded towards the wall. All right, Baldclack's tree, do you mean? I said, meaning to run that distance.
How should I know what silly names you call it? The one that's at the door in it. Go faster. They'll be coming in another minute.
Oh, what's the matter? I asked as I ran, clutching the white creature, and much afraid of stumbling and coming over it with the long grass.
You'll see fast enough,
said the selfish bird.
You just...
Its wings spread and disappeared into the hollow without a word of thanks. I looked round, not very comfortably. The curfew tower was still playing St. David's tune and the little chime that follows, for the third and last time, but the other bells had not finished what they had to say, and now there was silence, and again the restless changing whir was the only thing that broke. No, that emphasized it. Why had the owl been so anxious to get into hiding? That, of course, was what exercised me now. Whatever or whoever was coming, I was sure that this was no time for me to cross to the open field. I should do my best to disassemble my presence by staying on the darker side of the tree, and that is what I did. All this took place some years ago before summertime came in. I do sometimes go into the playing fields at night still, but I come in before true midnight. And I find I do not like the crowd after dark, for example, at the 4th of July fireworks. You see, no, you do not see, but I see such curious faces of people to whom they belong flit about so oddly, and often at your elbow when you least expect it, or coming close to your face, as if they were searching for someone, who may be thankful, I think, they did not find him. Where do they come from? Why, some, I think, out of the water, and some out of the ground. They look like that, but I am sure it is best to take no notice of them, and not to touch them. Yes, I certainly prefer the daylight population of playing fields to that which comes after dark.